Hey, what's up everyone? How's it going? This is Watch. Hope you guys are all doing well. And in this video, we'll be doing a direct head-to-head comparison between the Logitech G29 and the G27. Now, the G27 from Logitech actually came out in 2009. It's now 6 years old, if you can believe it or not. And there's really a massive loyal following behind it, and for good reason. But is the new G29 really worthy of succeeding the G27? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. So if you're interested, stay tuned. Now, firstly, I want to mention that there are two new steering wheels that Logitech has just recently introduced. The G29, which is compatible with the PlayStation 4, and the G920, which is designed for the Xbox One. Both steering wheels are compatible also with the PC. Now, the primary reason for the G29's existence is because of the new generation of gaming consoles. Specifically, the G27 doesn't natively support the PlayStation 4 hardware or the Xbox One hardware. It's compatible for the PC, PlayStation 2, and PlayStation 3. So thus, we have these new steering wheels. Now, essentially what we're going to take a look at is basically the major component difference between the two, internal differences, and just the way that they both feel in terms of playing different racing games. Now, side by side, you can see that in terms of the overall shape and architecture, they're really not too much different from each other. Sure, they do have a completely different layout, but they both measure about 270 millimeters in terms of their diameter. They both are using hand-stitched leather wrap steering wheel, and they both have an aluminum spoke. We have an anodized finish on the G29, which definitely looks pretty cool, but essentially in terms of the design perspective, they're both very similar. Now, in terms of the button configuration and layout, both the G29 and G27 have the exact same dual paddle shifters, so there's really no difference there. There is obviously a difference in terms of how many buttons and the style of layout. On the G29, it's specifically optimized for the PlayStation 4 platform, so you have all the PlayStation style buttons, including the PS button, the option, the share button, your X, circle, square, triangle buttons, two R2 buttons, and two R3 buttons. You also have a D-pad at the top and a plus and minus buttons at the bottom. Lastly, on the bottom right corner, you basically have an enter button surrounded by a 24-point selection dial, so you could fine-tune all your different settings. The G27, on the other hand, is a little bit more generic in terms of its button configuration. Basically, you have 6 programmable buttons on the steering wheel itself, and then you have a D-pad as well as other control buttons on the shifter knob that comes included with the G27. And by the way, Logitech has designed a new 6-speed manual shifter for the G29 and G920. Unfortunately, it does not come bundled in with the steering wheels. You have to purchase this as a separate option. Now, just to let you guys know that the shifter and pedals are cross-compatible with both of these two platforms, so you can use the G27's shifter or pedals with the G29 if you so desire. And lastly, you can see that the G29 also has the LED rev indicator light that we have on the G27, but of course, if you want to use that LED indicator light, you want to make sure you're playing the appropriate game that's optimized for these two steering wheels. Now, moving forward, let's talk about the pedals that comes with both of these two units. Now, essentially, the pedals on the G27 are identical to the ones you'll find on the G29, with the exception of one thing, and that's the brake pedal. So basically, you have the exact same configuration in terms of clutch and accelerator, but when you stomp on the brakes on the G29's brake pedal, you're going to notice that it's a little bit more dampened. It has a little bit more of a realistic brake emulation, and it's definitely more progressive as well. And with that dampening, it also makes the thing a little bit quieter, as you can tell by this clip. Now, inside the G29, you have pretty much the same architecture as we found on the G27. They have the same range of motion of 900 degrees. They both have dual force feedback motors. They both are using helicut gears with anti-backlash design, but there is a difference in terms of the sensors and the encoder. We have a new encoder on the G29, which is going to make it supposedly a little bit more accurate, and we're using all new Hall effect sensors on the G29, which uses magnetic fields for all of your positional trackings and mapping, opposed to the optical sensors found on the G27. Now, they say this should improve accuracy and precision, but in my experience, I didn't really come across that notion. Basically, the big difference is going to be longevity and the durability aspect of things, where optical sensors can degrade over time, versus typically Hall effect sensors are a closed unit, so they're a little bit more resilient to dust and general wear and tear use after a long period of time. Now, I personally had a lot of experience using the G27 for a number of years now, and I'm a really big fan of it. And I would have to say, after using the G29 for a couple of days, there's really not a major difference between the two when it comes to the steering feel and force feedback system. They both pretty much feel identical when it comes to the sensation of understeering, oversteering, braking, crashing. You get the exact same feel when you're going over different terrains in your racing game. So there's really not going to be a major difference when it comes to actually using both these steering wheels. The only real difference that I could determine was the acoustics. So we're going to take a listen to both steering wheels to see which one is actually quieter. Now, as you heard from those two samples, the G29 is just slightly quieter than the G27, not by a huge margin. Both steering wheels exhibit that kind of clanky noise every once in a while once you hit like a bump or crash into a wall, which is definitely kind of annoying at times. Now, in terms of in-game steering performance, when you're playing a game like Project Cars on the PC or on the PlayStation 4, which is specifically optimized for both of these two Logitech steering wheels, both feel really great and very responsive. I would say, though, based on my experience, the G29 did feel a little bit more responsive when it comes to the force feedback system on Project Cars on the PC, just a little bit more than the G27. It felt a little bit more connected to the game. Again, not by a huge margin. I did notice a little bit less dead zone at the center point on the G29 compared to the G27, but I think for 99% of people, that's not going to be a big issue unless you're a professional race car driver. Now, let's briefly talk about the compatibility options we have on both racing wheels. Now, as we mentioned before, the whole reason why the G29 exists is because of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One platforms. So on the PS4, the G29 is fully compatible with two specific games, Project Cars and Drive Club, and I had a chance to test out both games that work flawlessly. You can control the entire PlayStation 4 using the onboard controls on the G29, which is really great and fantastic. I unfortunately don't have a PlayStation 3 that I could fully test out the G29 with, but theoretically it should work with any of the titles that support the G27, but of course take that with a grain of salt. On the PC though, the G29 and G920 will work with pretty much all of the modern racing titles that work with the G27, as you would expect. If there's a little bit of compatibility hiccups, you could always map all the controls manually. During my own testing, I did play a lot of Codemasters games and I had very little issues with that, specifically using the G27 presets. But currently on the PC, there's only really one title that's natively optimized for this new Logitech hardware, and that is a Project Cars. And once you load up Project Cars, set your control schemes to specifically the G29 preset, you can definitely tell that the developers have spent some time with this steering wheel in order to fully optimize it for the game. But of course, I would expect over the next couple of months and years, you're going to have continuing growing support for the G29 and the G920 steering wheel as we move further into the future. Now, lastly, we're going to talk about the price point of both these two steering wheels. Now, the G29 retails for about $399, and if you want this 6-speed shifter, you're going to have to pay another $49.99 for that, versus the G27 has been steadily going down in price over the last couple of years, so you can easily get it for under $250 on Amazon, and that includes the pedals and the 6-speed manual shifter. So the real question now becomes, for a $200 difference, is it really worth getting the G29 over the G27 when you take a look at these similarities of these two platforms? And really, it comes down to the fact that if you want the G29 for your PlayStation 4. Now, obviously, the PlayStation 4 retails for about the same price as the steering wheel itself. Basically, what you are getting is the newer platform. It is quieter, it is a little bit more refined, but generally speaking, I would say it's definitely not worth the $200 extra compared to the G27, in my honest opinion, especially if you're going to use the steering wheel for your PC. Now, there's of course an alternative using the G27 with the PlayStation 4 while using an adapter or converter. Now, with these adapters and converters, you are going to find a delay in response time, and that's definitely a no-go for anybody that's serious into racing simulations. But you have to keep in mind that right now the price point is down on the G27 because of the fact that it's 6 years old. It originally retailed for around the same price as the G29, so there's really no surprise there in terms of the retail price on the the G920 and G29 steering wheels. And in that case, if you want the ultimate driving experience on your PlayStation 4, it's really a no-brainer with the G29 or G920 for the Xbox One. But really, on that, guys, that's really it. Make sure to leave a comment down below if you have any questions at all. Give me a thumbs up. That really helps us out. Definitely check out the channel for our full review of the G29 coming out very, very soon. And I want to give a big shout out to Logitech for making this review possible, providing a G29 for us to review. So big thanks to them. But really, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you later. Take care.